Jayam Svaparam Spasrajacharya Satara Sadasman Bhaktivittanda Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Sri Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Govinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda ki Javadhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami the Bhaktavinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Thank you very much.
Maha-Bharata, second half, chapter 21. Drishtadyumna encounters Drona-acarya. Scene 1. Why Krishna was happy to hear that Ghatotkacha was slain. Beholding Bhimasena's son slain and lying like a hill on the battlefield, the Pandavas shed tears of grief. To everyone's amazement, however, Krishna uttered loud war cries and laughed. Dancing on the terrace of Arjuna's chariot, Krishna clapped his arms in happiness. Keshava embraced Falguna with tears in his eyes. Arjuna looked at Krishna with surprise. Oh, Madhusudan, why are you showing delight at such a time? Our troops are crying in sorrow. We also are grief-stricken to see Hidimbi's son slain. Oh, all-knowing one, tell me truly why you have suddenly lost your mind. I consider your fickleness to be as incredible as the ocean drying up or Mount Meru walking. Putting his lotus-like hand on his friend's shoulder, Krishna replied to Bibhatsu, "O Dhananjay, I feel an overwhelming happiness. Now that Karna has discharged his Shakti weapon, you may consider him already dead. No person could have confronted Karna in battle if, like Kartikeya himself, Karna stood with that Shakti weapon in hand. By good fortune, Karna has been deprived of his natural armor, and now deprived of the dart he received in exchange for the invulnerable coat of mail. Karna is now like an infuriated, venomous serpent, stupefied by mantra incantations, or like a fire with smoldering flames. My dear Arjuna, I must confide in you. Ever since I heard that Karna had received that Shakti weapon from Indra, I have been in anxiety. I knew very well of the terrible power of that weapon, and even you would have been unable to check it. But now it has been spent, and Karna cannot use it again." Arjuna now looked at the dead body of Ghatotkacha. Surely that Shakti weapon must be something extraordinary if it had brought down the mighty Rakshasa. So why then had Karna not used it earlier against him? Seeing Arjuna's mystified expression and understanding his mind, Krishna replied, "Each day Dhritarashtra's sons would counsel Karna to use his Shakti weapon and slay you, O Partha, and Karna would come out firmly resolved to do so. It was I who confounded his attempts. Keeping you at other parts of the battle, I gave Karna little chance to release the dart. Karna was always awaiting his chance. It would not have been long until he ultimately encountered you in single combat. Oh, Bibatsu, now you need have no fear of that encounter. Arjuna soon realized that it must have been more than just Krishna's tactical maneuvers which had saved him. Surely Karna had opportunities to hurl that weapon. Karna's intelligence and memory must have been confounded by the indwelling Paramatma Supersoul. Vijay looked with wonder at Krishna. If Keshava desired one's protection, how could one be killed? And if Govinda wished for someone's death, who could possibly protect him? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke, Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke. Scene 2. Vyasdev pacifies Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir was sorrowful to witness the death of Ghatotkacha. He sat down on the terrace of his chariot and wept. Bhimasena, his own heart rent with grief, tried to comfort him. Then Krishna went over to them and said, "O son of Kunti, do not give way to grief at such a critical time. In this dreaded hour of night, our roaring foes are cheering and rushing at us again. Seeing you dispirited like this, our own men will lose heart for the fight. O Keshava, you always see the excellent path of duty. Surely we must remain in battle, despite reverses. But remembering the many services and kindness Bhimasena's son rendered to us, my heart aches. That mighty armed hero was devoted to us and has laid down his life in our service. The affection I bear for him is no less than the affection I feel for my own brother Sahadev. That Suta's son Karna slew Ghatotkacha before our very eyes. That evil-minded Karna was also instrumental in the death of Abhimanyu." As he spoke to Krishna, Yudhishthir looked out into the darkness of the night. The battle was still raging all around the fallen Ghatotkacha. Karna's illuminated flag standard could be seen moving among the Pandava forces, with fire-tipped arrows speeding away from him in all directions. Yudhishthir's face was set into firm lines. He got to his feet and took hold of his bow, which was a hand-carved horn studded with glowing gems. The Pandava emperor called out to Krishna as he moved off, "O Keshava, Karna and Drona are destroying our army like a pair of infuriated elephants destroying a forest of bamboos. Now I think the time has come for them to die. So I myself will advance towards Karna. I cannot bear to see his prowess any longer, for it seems Arjuna does not wish to kill him, so I will do it myself." After ordering Bhimasena to engage with Drona and his supporters, Yudhishthir instructed his chariot driver to take him towards Karna. And as he left, blowing his conchal and twanging his bow, Krishna spoke to Arjuna. Just see, under the influence of anger, your esteemed elder brother is now advancing against Karna. This is not right. You should not allow him to engage in a fight with the Sutta, whose death you have sworn to accomplish. Arjuna then told Krishna to urge his horses on and to quickly follow Yudhishthir. But just at that moment, they saw Vyasadeva appear on the battlefield just near Yudhishthir, who stopped his chariot next to the sage and got down to offer obeisances. Vyasadeva touched Yudhishthir's head in blessing and said, O foremost of the Bharatas, it is fortunate indeed that Arjuna still lives, although he encountered Karna several times in battle. The Shakti weapon with which Karna slew Ghatotkacha was actually meant for Arjuna, and only by good fortune did Karna not use it on Vijay. If a serious duel had taken place between Karna and Falguna, Karna would surely have employed the Shakti weapon. Then a great calamity would have overtaken you. So Ghatotkacha has saved you from that today. The Rakshasa's death was ordained by Providence. So do not give way to wrath or sorrow, for all beings in this world must die. On the 5th day from today, the earth will come under your sway. Meditate on virtue. Set your mind on forbearance, charity, truth, and asceticism. O foremost son of Kunti, victory always follows righteousness. After comforting Yudhishthir, Vyasadeva vanished. The Pandava king, his anger now abated, called for Drishtadyumna. The time for which you were born has now come. Go, check the mighty Drona-acarya in battle. It was for this express purpose that you sprang from the sacrificial fire, armed with a bow and sword, and encased in shining armor. At once attack Drona. Shucha, do not fear. Let Shikandi, the twins, your father Drupada, King Virata and Satyaki, as well as all the Panchalas and Kekayas, go along with you. Throw down the preceptor and end this ghastly war. Then Arjuna came up to Yudhishthir, and the king told his younger brother, O Dhananjay, I see now that you have been saved from disaster. It is Krishna alone who is our protector. You should now exert yourself to destroy Karna. Drishtadyumna is advancing against the preceptor. Only 4 or 5 Akshalhinis remain on the battlefield. This war cannot last much longer. The two brothers looked around the battlefield. Now it was just past midnight, and the troops were tired. Some of them had lain down to sleep wherever they had been fighting, unable to continue any longer. Others kept fighting on, blinded by sleep and swinging out wildly with their weapons. Warriors were slain while almost unconscious from fatigue, not even feeling the blows which ended their lives. Seeing the soldiers' condition, Arjuna rode out into their midst and called out, All of you men are oppressed by drowsiness. If you like, you may desist from the fight. Lay down your weapons and your bodies. When the sun rises again, we may resume the battle." Praising Arjuna for his compassion, the troops stopped fighting and rested. The entire battlefield gradually became silent as the men lay down to sleep on the ground or on the backs of their slumbering elephants and horses. Others lay on the terraces of their chariots, with their bows and swords lying next to them. Stilled by sleep, the powerful warriors and their animals lay with their many ornaments gleaming in the moonlight. The entire battlefield appeared beautiful, like the work of a skilled artist. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Scene 3. Drona condemns Duryodhana as well as himself. Gradually the sky glowed red, and the sun rose from the eastern hills. As the sun illuminated the battlefield, the troops stirred and again rose for battle. The two sides were still intermingled in the very positions where they had last fought. Stretching their bodies and rubbing their eyes, they bowed towards the east and offered prayers to Suryadev, the sun god. Then, mounting their chariots and taking up their weapons, they regrouped into their respective divisions, waiting for the order to recommence the fight. However, Duryodhana had not been happy with the decision to rest for the night, but the other Kuru chiefs had disagreed with him. Duryodhana had wanted to seize the advantage gained by the death of Ghatotkacha. That huge Rakshasa had killed thousands of warriors as he was falling down, evening the odds between the two armies. Duryodhana was infuriated that the Kauravas had not been able to gain the upper hand when they had the chance. Going now over to Drona-acarya, Duryodhana spoke harshly. "O preceptor, you should have shown no mercy to our weakened enemy. You should not have permitted our troops to follow the order of Arjuna. Again and again you have spared the Pandavas. Oh, this is only my own ill luck." Angrily, Drona looked at Prince Duryodhana. "Here I am, still clad in armor, striving to kill your enemies, and I will do whatever can be done by the might of my arms. Still, I do not see that we will defeat the Pandavas, especially Arjuna. If Partha comes at us in a wrathful mood, we will all be swiftly dispatched to the mansion of Yamaraj. How is it you still fail to understand this basic truth? O king, when you have seen it so many times with your own eyes." Enraged to hear Drona praising Arjuna once again, Duryodhana replied, barely able to control his temper. "O my teacher, today, assisted by Dushashan, Karna, and my uncle Shakuni, I will slay Arjuna in battle." "Oh, Bharata, may good befall you. Your words befit a fool. What presumptuous Kshatriya would venture to fight with Bibatsu, who stands with Keshava by his side and the Gandiva bow in his hand? Has any man ever returned safely after challenging Vijay? Surely you have no intelligence. You are suspicious of everyone. You are cruel, and you rebuke even those who work for your cause. Go and fight then. Prove your boastful words in battle. Many times you have declared that you will crush the Pandavas, so today we will see you prove your claim. Take your uncle, who prefers to fight with dice, and take with you that vain Karna. Stand before Arjuna and his brothers, for they are there waiting for you. Go now and do what should be done by a brave Kshatriya. You have enjoyed this life to the fullest. By offering sacrifices and giving charity, you have no debts, so there is nothing to stop you. Go and fight without fear. Shusha! Drona then turned away. Nothing gave him greater pain than fighting for this arrogant prince. What sinful acts had Drona performed in previous lives that he was now compelled to side with Duryodhana against the Pandavas? Riding into the remaining Kauravas, Drona-acarya gave the order to fight. The warriors cheered, they blew their kanchals and beat their drums. Then they moved off in a body toward the Pandavas, determined to fight to the death. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Scene 4. Drona severs Drupada and Virata's heads. On the morning of the 15th day of the war, Drona-acarya fought with Drupada and Virata. The two monarchs stood at the head of the Panchala and Chedi armies. Disregarding them both, Drona began slaughtering their troops. Drona quickly caused a terrible destruction among the warriors, annihilating 5,000 chariot fighters in less than a half an hour. The Pandavas looked at Drona-acarya as if he were fire personified. Whichever way Drona directed his weapons, he routed the Pandava army. No one could approach Drona as he let go his flaming arrows. Then a group of 3 Panchala princes, all sons of Dhristadyumna and Shikandi, valiantly charged at Drona. They struck him with hundreds of fierce shafts, but Drona-acarya would not waver. Licking his lips, Drona cut down all 3 princes at once with his razor-headed arrows, and they fell headlong to the earth. Drupada and Virata then charged at Drona from both sides. They afflicted him with long arrows, which made Drona rock on the terrace of his chariot. Drupada hurled 10 lances in swift succession, followed by 10 steel shafts tipped with fire. Drona cut down all the missiles and struck Drupada on the chest with 3 arrows. Drupada angrily threw a dart bedecked with gold and gems, but Drona cut it to pieces with his shafts. Now, deciding to slay his opponents, who themselves had killed so many of the Kauravas, Drona took out a couple of crescent-headed arrows which were forged entirely of steel. Uttering mantras, Drona-acarya released the arrows. The heads of Drupada and Virat were then severed, and as the two old kings dropped lifeless from their chariots, Drona-acarya returned to the battlefield to contend with the remaining troops. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Scene 5. Arjuna fights Drona once again. Witnessing the deaths of both his sons and his father, Drona screamed out to his troops, "Attack Drona, and may any man who turns away today from the preceptor lose all their merits of pious acts." Now, cheered on by Drona's killing of the two Pandava generals, Duryodhana came to his assistance along with Karna and Shakuni. Duryodhana's remaining brothers also surrounded Drona-acarya just to protect him from any attack. The Kaurava warriors knew that Drona would now try his utmost to fulfill the prophecy that said he would kill Drona-acarya. In the meantime, Bhimasena became senseless with rage upon seeing Drona destroying the Pandava forces. Bhima came up to Drona, speaking harshly. "What man, regarding himself a Kshatriya, would stand by and watch his sons and father being slain? Having uttered a terrible oath in the assembly of kings, why do you not act upon it? There stands your sworn enemy, like a sacred fire with arrows and darts as its fuel, and the bodies of men as its libations. If you will not slay Drona, then I will do it myself. Stand aside, as I will dispatch this old Brahmana to the abode of Yamaraj at once." Bhimasena then broke away from Drona and rushed into the midst of the Kauravas. He released torrents of arrows which swept away the fighters opposing him. Chastened by Bhima's rebuke, Drona followed Bhima, trying to fight his way through to Drona, who was now surrounded by a large number of Kauravas. The Pandava forces came up behind Drona, and the two armies merged in a frenzied melee. And as the two armies clashed, the sky was screened with dust, and everyone thought that evening had again set in. The warriors climbed over dead bodies to reach their foes, swinging their swords and thrusting forward with sharp-tipped spears. Chariots could make no progress. Horses reared, unable to move in any direction. Men screamed out in pain and then fell to their death, calling out to their loved ones. Many brave warriors lay mortally wounded, but they were filled with joy, awaiting their ascent to the celestial regions. Arjuna was looking for his chance to confront Karna, but he encountered first Drona-acarya. As Bhima and Drona beat a path through the Kauravas towards the preceptor, Arjuna came up behind them. And while Bhima was engaged with Duryodhana and his brothers, and Drishtadyumna was held by Ashvatthama, Arjuna sent his gold-winged arrows at Drona by the thousands. A mighty battle then ensued between teacher and pupil, which astonished all the onlookers. Those two appeared like dancers on a stage, exhibiting their most wonderful motions. Arrows flew through the sky like flocks of swans. Meeting in the heavens, the shafts exploded into showers of sparks and fire. Drona-acarya then invoked every celestial weapon he knew. But as soon as they issued from his bow, Arjuna destroyed them. Drona smiled and applauded his students' prowess. Meanwhile, in the sky, Siddhas and Gandharvas watched in wonder, praising both warriors. Why, they could not perceive any difference between them, as they stood releasing their weapons without any pause. But neither could gain the advantage over the other. The gods considered the fight to be as if Rudra had divided himself into two and waged war against himself. These two, they are neither human nor celestial. This is a battle of Brahma energy, which transcends all earthly powers. If they so desired, these warriors could destroy the entire universe. While Arjuna and Drona-acarya fought, Drishtadyumna advanced steadily towards them, intent on killing Drona-acarya. Drishtadyumna was followed by Nakula and Sahadev, who were met by Kritavarma and Kripa-acharya. The heroes contended while the armies fought savagely all around them. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Part 6. The Sibylline Death of Drona-acarya. Satyaki, following Arjuna's path, then came upon Duryodhana. Long ago in Hastinapur, when Satyaki had come to Drona-acarya's school, they had been friends, even though Satyaki had become Arjuna's disciple. Satyaki had maintained his relationship with Duryodhana, and so the two men gazed at one another across the field, remembering their youthful sports together. Duryodhana called out, "Jai ho there, dear friend! Oh, how cursed is the duty of Kshatriyas! Fie upon their might and their desire for wealth! O foremost of Sini's race, in the days of our childhood, why, you were more dear to me than life itself. Alas, all those days of friendship have become nothing now on this battlefield. Impelled by rage and covetousness, we stand here bent upon each other's death. Alas, where have those carefree days of our youth gone? Oh, my dear friend, that one must fight even with one's preceptor has always been a Kshatriya's duty. O king, do not hesitate. If you actually love me, then slay me without delay. For by doing so, you will launch me into the regions of the righteous. O Duryodhana, display your full prowess. I no longer wish to witness the slaughter of all my friends." Tears fell from Satyaki's eyes as he spoke. He knew the days of friendship he had enjoyed with the Pandavas and the Kauravas were now gone. Their friendly fights of the past were now in earnest. Bending his bow, he shot a series of long arrows at Duryodhana, who immediately replied with his own arrows. The two men pierced one another repeatedly, roaring in anger. A battle resembling that between Arjuna and Drona then developed. The sky was filled with arrows as both warriors invoked celestial weapons. Gradually, Satyaki prevailed over the Kaurava, and so Karna came to the rescue of Duryodhana. Now assisted by Karna, the king pulled clear of Satyaki, but his body was lacerated with arrows. Drona-acarya continued to destroy the Pandava army as if appointed by death itself for their destruction. The screams of the oppressed troops filled the air as Drona assailed them with countless blazing arrows. Witnessing Drona's power, Yudhishthir felt he could never become victorious. Yudhishthir met Arjuna and Bhima and revealed his anxiety. "Oh, my dear brothers, it seems Drona-acarya will consume all of us. No one can check that mighty hero." But Krishna replied, "What you say is true, O king. Drona-acarya cannot be checked as long as he stands with his upraised weapons. But if he lowers them, Drona can be slain. I think if he hears that his son has been killed, Drona-acarya will lose all heart for the fight. So tell him that Ashwatthama is dead. Then Drona will lower his bow and we can kill him." Arjuna was shocked. "Oh, Madhava, I cannot accept this." But Bhimasena, upon hearing Krishna's words, immediately broke away. He raced into a nearby Kaurava elephant division. At its head rode Indravarma, the Malaya ruler. Bhima knew that his elephant was named Ashwatthama. Hurling his iron mace, Bhimasena smashed the beast and slew it, along with its rider. Bhima then rushed over to Drona and bellowed out, "Ashwatthama is slain! Ashwatthama is slain!" And as he deceived Drona, Bhima's voice was quivering and his heart fluttered. But Bhima knew it was the instruction of Krishna. So again and again he called out, "Ashwatthama is slain! Ashwatthama is slain!" Hearing the words of Bhima, Drona-acarya stopped fighting. His limbs seemed to dissolve like sand in water. However, recalling his son's prowess, Drona decided it could not be true. Bhima was known to be capricious, so it would not be beyond him to speak an untruth out of anger or in jest. Drona rallied himself, resuming his assault on the Pandavas. Drishtadyumna now reached Drona, and so they began to fight once again. Holding off Drishtadyumna's attack, the Kuru general continued annihilating the Pandava forces. Drona next invoked the terrible Brahma weapon. Warriors fell to the earth like trees, uprooted in a hurricane. Heads and arms flew about as Drona's arrows fell on his enemy. And within a short time, Drona had killed 10,000 chariot fighters before the eyes of Yudhishthir, even while Drishtadyumna was assailing Drona with all of his strength. Drona-acarya stood on the battlefield like a blazing fire, without a single curl of smoke. As Drona surveyed his ravaged foes, suddenly there appeared in the sky above him a group of rishis headed by Agni-Dev. His own father, Bharadwaj, along with Vasishtha, Vishwamitra, Gautam, Kashyapa, and many other celestial sages, stood in the sky in their subtle forms. They addressed Drona in a single voice that only he could hear. "O Drona, you are fighting unfairly, using celestial weapons against lesser warriors. Now it is time for you to die. Cast away your weapons. You are a learned Brahmin, and such cruelty does not become you. By employing the Brahma weapon to kill ordinary men, now you have earned disrepute. Stop these sinful acts and stop your fighting. Your days are now at an end." Drona then looked all around. Drishtadyumna was still near him, roaring out his challenge. Perhaps the time for the prophecy's fulfillment had arrived. Drona's arms fell to his side. He could no longer continue. And still, Bhima's words troubled him, and the sage's speech pained him even more. Could Ashvatthama actually be dead? Who could he ask and be sure to receive the truth? Seeing Yudhishthir not far away, the Kuru general went towards Yudhishthir. He was the one to ask, because Yudhishthir would never speak a lie. Krishna saw Drona coming toward Yudhishthir and said, "O king, save us from Drona, for if he fights even a half-day more, your army will be finished. Under the circumstances, falsehood is better than truth. In order to preserve life, falsehood is never a sin." Krishna then cited a scriptural passage which sanctioned lying under certain circumstances, including times when one's life was endangered. Yudhishthir reflected on Krishna's words. He could not ignore them. But Yudhishthir had never in his life spoken even an ambiguity. So the thought of a lie was difficult for him to face. And yet, if Drona was not checked, Yudhishthir's forces would be defeated. Yudhishthir remembered Drona's own prophetic statement at the beginning of the war, that Drona would be overpowered at that time when he heard something disagreeable from a creditable source. Reluctantly, Yudhishthir agreed to Krishna's suggestion, and as the Kuru preceptor approached him, Yudhishthir gave him the false news. "Ashvatthama is dead!" The elephant. Because Yudhishthir could not tell an utter untruth under any circumstance. Now, until this time, Yudhishthir's horses seemed to move across the battlefield without even touching the earth. But after he lied to Drona, Yudhishthir's horses descended to earth. The sages up in the sky looking on wondered why this was so. Some said that Yudhishthir's lie had been the cause, while others argued that Yudhishthir's reluctance to obey Krishna's order was the reason. So, as soon as Yudhishthir spoke the lie, Drona-acarya felt his heart sink into fathomless grief. His agony was compounded by the words of the sages, which made him feel like he had offended the Pandavas. Now, distracted by sorrow, Drona moved away from Yudhishthir with his weapons lowered. Now Drona attacked. Drona was struck all over, but he did not resist. He was plunged into despair. Drona attacked him with even more force, and the old Kuru preceptor, incited now to anger, finally raised his bow to fight back. Displaying his incomparable lightness of hand, Drona-acarya cut down all of Drona's arrows. Drona chanted mantras invoking celestial weapons to destroy Drona. But now they would no longer appear simply at his command. Marveling, he fired volleys of ordinary arrows at Drona. But suddenly he saw that his stock of shafts, which were inexhaustible for the last 15 days, was now empty. Despondent, Drona decided to give up his life. He dropped his bow and repeatedly cried out, "Ashvatthama! Ashvatthama! Oh, Ashvatthama!" Now, looking over at the other Kurus, he called out, "Oh, Duryodhana, Karna, Kripa, fight with all your power, for now I will lay aside my weapons." Drona-acarya sat down in his chariot and assumed a meditative posture, with his eyes half closed and arms outstretched. Drona-acarya fixed his mind on Lord Vishnu. As he entered into a trance, Drona intoned the sacred syllable, Om. Still stationed up in the heavens, the celestial sages saw Drona-acarya leave his mortal frame and ascend toward the higher regions. It seemed to them as if another sun planet was rising in the sky as the Brahmana rose upwards. Unaware that Drona had already departed, Drona now saw his chance. Taking up a razor-edged saber, Drona jumped down from his chariot and ran towards the Kuru preceptor. All the warriors witnessing this called out to him to stop, but he was not to be deterred. Amid cries, "Alas! Fie! No!" Drona jumped onto Drona's chariot with his sword held high. Grabbing hold of Drona-acarya's knotted hair, Drona dragged him, and with a great sweep of his sword, severed the head of Drona-acarya. Drona then threw the head towards the Kauravas, roaring in joy, hurling his blood-soaked sword in the air. Arjuna, meanwhile, had been shouting at Drona to capture Drona and bring him alive to Yudhishthira. Partha was mortified by Drona's viciousness. Kiriti's heart melted with sorrow at the cruel killing of his beloved teacher. Bhimasena, however, cheered and ran over to joyfully embrace Drona. Yudhishthira was afflicted by conflicting emotions. Overjoyed that the hostilities would now soon end, Yudhishthira was nevertheless full of misgivings about Drona's death, which had been brought about by deceit. And like Arjuna, Yudhishthira was sad to see Drona mercilessly butcher their preceptor. Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rama Raghava, Rakshamam. Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Krishna Keshava, Pahimam. Scene 7. Ashvatthama hears about his dead father. The Kauravas were now struck by grief and fear. Their all-conquering general was dead. Unable to actually believe it, they fled. Duryodhan, Karna, Shakuni, and the Kuru chiefs were overwhelmed by sorrow, and they ran along with their troops. And as they rushed from the cheering Pandava forces, the Kauravas encountered Ashvatthama moving in the opposite direction, like an alligator swimming against a river's current. Surprised to see the Kauravas retreating, Ashvatthama stopped Duryodhan and asked, "Why do I see our army fleeing, O king? Why are all of you and the other heroes running away? Surely some unthinkable calamity has now befallen upon us." It was impossible for Duryodhan to tell Ashvatthama the bad news. He looked down and said nothing. Kripa-Acharya came up to his side, and Duryodhan said, "Oh, Acharya, please tell Ashvatthama why we are fleeing." And with tears flowing down his face, Kripa-Acharya said, "O my son, with that foremost of men, Drona, at our head, we have waged a great battle with the Panchalas, during which your father has slain not less than 50,000 of their numbers. Penetrating into the ranks of the Pandavas, your illustrious father scorched our enemies like the destroyer Rudradev himself. No one could stand before Drona-acarya. So therefore the Pandavas decided upon an unfair means to check him. Informing Drona that you had been slain, O child, they deprived him of his senses and power. Drishtadyumna, when he saw your father anxious and desisting from the fight, he flew at Drona with sword held high. Even as the preceptor sat in mystic meditation, and many warriors shouted at him to stop, Drupada's son lopped off the head of your father. Thus, the great Drona-Acharya suffered death at the hands of a heartless warrior. This is why our troops are fleeing." Ashvatthama cried out. His bow dropped from his hand, and he fell to his knees. Insensible with rage, Ashvatthama shook like a tree in a hurricane. His body burned, and he knelt with his head between his knees for a few moments. Gradually regaining his composure, Ashvatthama stood up and spoke. "O Duryodhan, how have the so-called virtuous Pandavas committed such a vile act? Today they will reap the consequences. Disregarding me, Drishtadyumna has committed a most heinous deed. I swear by truth, that the earth will soon drink the blood of Drishtadyumna, as well as that of Dharma's son Yudhishthir. For if I do not slay every last one of those Panchalas, I will not drag on my burdensome existence any longer. By any means, fair or foul, I will bring about the end of Drishtadyumna and all of his followers." Ashvatthama's face glowed as he spat out the words. Turn, O heroes, and fight our enemies. I will charge at your head and annihilate anyone who comes before me. Today you will see me discharging fearful weapons equal to those of Rudradev or even Vishnu. For I have in my possession the Narayana weapon, which my father gave to me, and which was given to him by Lord Shiva. My father was told by that unfailing God that this weapon can destroy any at whom it is directed. Today, I will use it to crush the entire Pandava army. It can only be discharged once, and I have been saving it for such a moment of desperation. And now the entire world shall see its power. Ashvatthama roared repeatedly, inspiring new life into the Kauravas. They cheered him and rallied the retreating troops to the beating of drums and the blasts of thousands of conchs. The Kaurava army turned back towards the Pandavas. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlad Aklada Dayane Hiranya Kashi Purvaksha Shilatangana Kalayi Nrsinga Parato Nrsinho Yato Yamitato Nrsinga Mahi Nrsinga Hridaye Nrsinho Nrsinga Madin Charanang Rapadi Namaste Narasimhaya Javakara Kamala Vari Nakam Adbhuta Shringam Lalita Hiranyakashipu Chanumlingam Keshavadvita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadvita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadish Jaya Jagadisha Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna